Welcome everyone to the grocery outlet IO webinar for Axiom Cloud. I see a bunch of people rolling in right now, so we'll wait to get started until everybody's in, of course. But we have a number of people joining us as panelists today. We have from Axiom Cloud, myself. My name is Patrick Tom. I'm an account manager for Grocery Outlet. We have Joel Scherer, who is our solutions engineer here. And then we'll have Brian joining as well, Brian Gamatis, who you all know. And then the three independent owners as well. So would you mind introducing yourselves, Jesus, Sarah, Sandra?
Sure. My name is Jesus Valenzuela. I'm the owner operator over here at the Stockton store on North Wilson Way.
I'm Sarah Wheeler from Citrus Heights Grocery Outlet, and I'm just here to share my experience with Axiom.
Sandra Kurtz, and we're from Victorville.
Awesome. Great, thanks so much. And then looks like Brian joined as well. So Brian, if you would share your video, and I don't know if you need to do a little introduction or not. I think pretty much everybody knows you. All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. We can get going. It looks like we have a good amount of people who have rolled in so far. You just want to do a quick audio check. Brian, can you hear us? I think you might be on mute. There we go. One sec as we deal with some technological difficulties. Get everybody in here.
Maybe we just keep going, and then when Brent's figured it out, we can introduce him.
Yep, that sounds good. Well, I think you know, really the whole goal here is to give a overview of this program. So Axiom currently is in 76 grocery outlet locations and has been able to be paid for by a program which we'll talk about here. Really, the whole goal is to cut costs for energy and maintenance, and really, I mean, make it so that those things aren't getting in the way of selling groceries, and you're not losing any product. Obviously, that's something that's very top of mind, because I know that you guys, as IOs, are responsible for 100% of your product. So if there's ever loss due to refrigeration, that probably does not feel good at all. So that's the whole idea here, is let's make the refrigeration system more efficient, make sure it's operating and reliable for you, and do that in a way that is easy for us to know exactly what is going on with your system. And the other thing with that, right, is we're hopefully being able to get this paid for and make it very financially feasible for you guys to do so. So that being said, our agenda here today is we'll do an overview of Axiom and talk to Brian about why Grocery Outlet partnered with Axiom. And then we'll do an overview of what this incentive program really is, the details, how you can get it paid for, what really it takes for that. And then lastly, we'll do some IO feedback, right? Getting really some understanding of what Sandra, Jesus, and Sarah really have experienced using Axiom. And then we'll just talk through next steps to sign up. So hopefully it shouldn't take too long this morning, but with that, we'll go ahead and jump in here. Brian, do we have your audio? Well, I'm going to go ahead and jump into Axiom overview, and then if we can get Brian's audio figured out, then we can jump back to kind of this more partnership overview. So really, I think the whole idea, the whole reason that Grocery Outlet partnered with Axiom is really for three reasons. So there's, I would assume that all of us on this call have experienced these in some way. So I'm just going to do a high level kind of breeze through this, but really it's, rising energy costs that all of us are experiencing, technician shortages, especially in different areas where maybe it's more hard to get technicians out. And then lastly, refrigerant regulations and everything like that, right? So refrigerant leaks, I think one thing specifically for IOs is if the system starts leaking, a lot of times when we find out about that is when cases are getting warm. and obviously that's very, very much so a reactive approach, and puts you in jeopardy for losing product. So if we can find out about these sooner, that's kind of the idea here. And so for that, I think what we see is that 60-70% of a store's energy use is directly related to refrigeration. And 90% of all the service calls are directly related to refrigeration as well. And then, refrigerant costs have gone up considerably as well in the last year. And so, I mean, when we talk about Axiom Cloud, what we're really providing is software-enabled services in each one of those three areas for specifically refrigeration. It is energy. We're doing low temperature load shifting, demand response, which we'll talk about here shortly. It's actually the ability to do demand response is what is enabling us to get incentives to pay for Axiom. It's automated continuous commissioning. What that really just means is making the system more efficient, the refrigeration system more efficient. We'll talk about the ways that we do that by identifying ways it's just spending too much energy. Predictive maintenance for your system, right? Being able to see what's happening with the system and get ahead of issues before they become emergencies. That the main thing here, and I think a couple of, Sandra and Jesus are going to talk about this. A lot of times we're finding out about these refrigeration issues when they're already emergencies, right? And we have to get somebody out immediately to get a truck rolled. Well, if we can know what's happening with the system and flag things that could potentially become emergencies, then, we can bulk, do all of the work that we need to do and batch these work orders. And then, lastly, just refrigerant leaks. And I see that, Amrit, thank you. Refrigerant leaks, we're detecting these a lot sooner, right? So that we don't have to wait until things are getting warm for us to find them. And then also, if we're needing to do, which in California, we need to do these manual leak checks quarterly, we actually have the ability with Axiom to satisfy CARB, California Air Resources Board, so that you actually don't need to do those manual leak checks. So it saves you quite a bit of money just in terms of getting somebody out quarterly as well. So that being said, it sounds like Brian, we got everything ready. You're ready to talk through things as well. Oh, we can't hear you. Can you hear me? All right, we can work on that. Joel, you want to hop in here and talk a little bit about what, how Axiom kind of works connecting with their current controllers?
Yeah, absolutely. So, a lot of times people think, oh, I've got my controllers, they're giving me all the information that I need. And Axiom is really an intelligence layer that adds to the capabilities of your current controllers. We like to think of it as being much more predictive rather than responsive, which you're getting, say, out of your Emerson E2s or your controllers that you currently have. And so, by adding this layer of intelligence, it really allows you to sniff out problems before they happen and then address them, in a way that's much more cost effective and definitely much more efficient as far as managing maintenance and making sure that you're solving the problem that's actually causing the issues in your store, rather than having somebody put a Band-Aid out there. We're able to identify the problems and then identify the root cause and then a solution for you to go out and hand to your maintenance crew and say, this is the problem. We know this because of the data, and here's how you can go solve it.
Awesome.
And, you know, the way Axiom works is, you know, we like to say that we build a digital twin of your refrigeration system. So we take all of the equipment that we know that you've got in your stores, and we replicate that digitally. So we know how everything should be working. And then we start importing actual usage data. So we see how your system is running every day, and we're able to modify, you know, the as built to how your system actually operates. And then we have a really deep understanding of everything that's going on in your system. So if something anomalous happens, we're able to identify that and then reach out to the stores and let them know where the problem exists. And dealing with Axiom, you know, we like to say that we're a software company, but it's really more of a software enabled service. So we do provide you with a customer web portal, which gives you access to all of the data that's coming out of your systems. It's an easy login. You can see it on your screen. But what we really like to highlight is the performance reports. So every month we send out, you know, I think Patrick likes to call this a paycheck, right? Where you're really seeing, you know, the issues that Axiom was able to identify and the amount that you were saving each month by going and fixing those proactively. And then the other thing that we do is what are called anomaly notifications. That's where if we identify something in your store that's not working the way it should, we'll send these out via email usually, and they provide a detailed example of, you know, what the problem was, where to find it, what the root cause was, and then potential fixes and the actions that your maintenance crews can take. So a lot of times we have store owners that will actually just print these out and then hand them over to their maintenance teams and say, this is the issue we've identified, start here when you go out to fix it.
Absolutely.
Really quick, Joel, before we move on, I just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Claire McCreeve, and I'm the one who does all these performance reports. So if you ever have any questions about, you know, the CWP or how, you know, anything works in terms of getting access to these reports, I know sometimes logins can be a little bit difficult to find. So I'm happy to assist on that front.
Awesome. Love it. Good. So we talked about the fact that we're able to pay for these for Axiom for the first year by utilizing an incentive for demand response. So just wanted to touch on demand response in general, what it is, how it works with Axiom. We'll go into a little bit more detail as well after this about incentives and everything like that. But just wanted to introduce this as well. So I'll hand off back to you, Joel.
Yeah, so, you know, this is actually probably the most exciting thing that Axiom Cloud does is we're able to sort of monitor how your store is working, understand the outside external temperatures, the conditions that you're operating in. And then when we receive a demand response event from the utility, what we do is we take those low temperature cases and we actually super cool them by, you know, commanding the compressors on before in the day before that event is going to happen. Therefore, your low temperature food and your products are super cooled so that when the time comes for that event, you can actually modulate those compressors and control and slowly bring back up those case temperatures back to normal, which allows you to, one, save the energy during those peak times, and two, receive benefits from the utility.
And would you mind, just in case we have people on that don't know what demand response is, would you mind just going, giving kind of a high level overview of why the utility would want to pay people for that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, with electrical grid systems, you know, you can only use as much energy as you generate, and you can only generate as much as you use. They have to match. And so in periods where it's hot and there's high peaks and a lot of people are using a lot of electricity, utilities want to lower the amount of consumption. And they do this by encouraging people to use less energy at certain times. And that's what they call a demand response event. They say when it's going to happen, and they say, you know, on Thursday from 5 to 7 p.m., we're going to call a demand response event. And that lets you know, hey, during that time, you know, we want to reduce our consumption. And that's really what avoids these kind of brownouts and blackouts. Because if you've got too many people trying to use and not enough power being generated, the system just can't hang on. And so really, demand response is an opportunity for end users like grocery stores to lower their usage, you know, in conjunction with the utility programs. And for doing that, the utilities will actually compensate store owners for not using electricity during that time.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, one quick thing here before we go in and kind of show how this works is that, you know, this is only for your low temperature items, and it's much more intelligent than just turning off turning it off during a specific period of time, because we can't, obviously, you know, food is at stake. We can't just turn off your compressors. So what we're doing is we're intelligently pre-cooling only those low temperature items, because what we care about those low temperature items is how warm we get, right? We can actually store a little bit of a thermal load by bringing them down a few degrees and storing that kind of cool, so that we can participate in a demand response event. And then we're always also, you know, seeing what the actual temperature is in a case. And if it starts coming up before higher than we need it to be, or, you know, approaching a set point, we're intelligently modulating those compressors back on and off, right? So it's not like we're just turning it off for a specific period of time. So that being said, I think that makes sense to go into a little detail here on demand response and a little bit about what Axiom is doing. And then Brian, I see you're back on here. I think what I'll do is I'm going to ask you for your feedback after we kind of get through a little bit of the details, since we're kind of in the weeds a little bit. Is that all right?
Sorry, if that was for me, I had a phone ringing in my ear. I didn't hear what you just said. I'm sorry.
No worries. No worries.
I just silenced my phone, so I should be good. But
yeah, no, you're totally fine. No, I was just gonna say I'm gonna come back to you here in probably 4 slides when we're talking through about Axiom. But I would assume that all the IOs know you anyway, so needs no introduction, I would assume. Good stuff.
yeah, that's
right,
that's fine. We can keep cruising.
All right, good stuff. And so in terms of what a demand response event really looks like, Joel, you want to go into a little bit of detail here?
Yeah, so we touched on it a little bit. You know, what we're really doing is knowing the time that the utility is going to call that demand response event. And so we're going to intelligently cool those low temperature cases. So, you know, we're always making sure food safety is number one, right? So we never want food to get too hot, but it doesn't really matter how cold we get it within the confines of these cases. And so by super cooling it, you know, we know that when the utility says, hey, it's the demand response event time, we can basically modulate those compressors back on, and the case temperatures will slowly rise back up to what they were before the event. And then after, you know, the peak time is gone, the compressors can start kicking back in again and running a little bit harder to make sure that we're maintaining that temperature. So the goal here is to make sure that, you know, you're not using the electricity during that peak time. The utility is going to incentivize you for it, but the food is staying absolutely safe because we're just super cooling it and then slowly, gradually bringing it back up. You know, and we found that, you know, you can get somewhere around 25 kilowatts of flexible capacity just by doing this at each store. So, you know, utilities are very, very excited about that because refrigeration is such a big load that it's a really great opportunity for the industry to participate in this and generate a new revenue stream from the utilities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, you know, last thing I would say about this is we're now doing this in hundreds of locations across North America. And it works really, really well. Never any food issues at all. I know that as an IO, that would be the first thing I would be asking is, hey, like, is this gonna put any of my food at jeopardy? And no, it's it's always very, very safe because the override is temperature, right? It'll always override. We always listen to temperature before anything else. So that being said, I think you know, it'd be helpful. It would be helpful maybe as well to have Henry, who is our director of customer success, come on and talk a little bit about a couple different anomalies that you would likely see if you were a customer of Axiom Cloud. These are actual case studies of actual sites where we've done this. And so, Henry, would you mind speaking a little bit in detail on the next few slides here?
Sure. Yeah, I can do that.
And I think I saw your note here that, you know, just for clarity, these demand response periods are only two hours max, right? So it's not like we're turning this off for the whole day. It's only 2 hours at most. So I'll let you go ahead and take away, Henry.
Sure. So outside of demand response in our virtual battery product, we're also providing our artificial intelligence machine learning product, which is called Virtual Technician. So what this platform does is it's ingesting all of the data on your refrigeration controllers. With that data, we want to use it and analyze it to understand when we predict some type of issue with your refrigeration system, or better predict when something is likely to occur. So one of the most common ones that is hard to detect on typical refrigeration systems is compressor floodback. So this is a case study we did on one of these anomalies for a real site. And what this means, when we see low superheat, that means we're sending liquid to our compressors. Compressors cannot pump liquid. And so this typically leads to a compressor failure, which could lead to a rack outage. And of course, with a rack outage, that could lead to lost product. And so by using our software, we can, for one, detect that we have this instance of floodback or low superheat. But then we could go a next step further. So unlike your alarms that you're receiving from your Emerson controllers, which would just say low superheat, this is actually going to say, okay, low superheat, but where is it coming from? This is being detected on a specific circuit. And so when a technician comes in, he'll be able to see, okay, we have low superheat. I should check these circuits first. And then it will go even more in detail about what he can do to resolve this issue. And as well, you know, we have a lot of new technicians coming into the field. So this could really serve as a training situation for them where they can get a little bit more context about the refrigeration system, you know, likely root causes, likely failures, and what they can do to resolve it.
Yep. And, you know, just for context, we just talked about a little bit ago, what you would be receiving from Axiom. And one of those is the anomaly notifications. What I see a lot of IOs doing is using this right here, what they get from us, which has suggested actions on it, and either copying, pasting it and sending it to the vendor, or giving this to the vendor and saying, hey, this is what it's saying is the problem. So when you get here, this is where you can start. I see a lot of people doing that, and it really helps kind of speed up the process of getting to that fix. So I think we'll talk about that a little bit more with Sarah, I think, a little bit later.
And while can you go back to that last slide, Patrick, really quick? The last item here saying ensure repairs were made, I think is really important for IOs specifically, is that when you have technicians come out, you want to have just some additional set of eyes like a Brian or someone else that can just reassure you, okay, the job got done as expected and our system now looks like it's back to normal. And I think that's a lot of value that Axiom can provide, is that after the fact, after the technician has had you sign off on a work order, we can definitively say, okay, the repair was done adequately. Things are back to normal.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Yeah, I got another one here.
Yep. So Patrick alluded to this, but another thing that we provide is continuous energy commissioning, and that can affect all different parts of your system. One place we see a lot of additional energy consumption is from your condenser. And so some of the common anomalies we send relate to just some simple fan failures on your condensers. So these are things we could detect early. And what's, another really beneficial part of these anomalies is that these can be detected during the wintertime where it's difficult to predict. But what's great about it is now we could get ahead of summertime rush. So we can send out work orders to have our condensers either cleaned, fans replaced, coils cleaned. And that way, by the time it gets to summer, when we're fighting these, heat waves that come through California, our system's adequate to handle the extreme temperatures, all the load that may be on your refrigeration system.
Mm-hmm. Great. Do you want me to get a next slide?
Sure.
Great. There you go.
All right. And here's another one. Again, related to your compressors, the workhorse of your refrigeration system, things that are going to lead to product loss, rack outages. We could detect this in real time. So as soon as we see your compressors working erratically or a large deviation in the pressures of your system, you'll get notifications that we need to have a technician come out and fix this sooner rather than later. Again, just so we're beating these summertime heat waves, we're not doing this for overtime calls. These can be done during the workday and intelligently scheduling when we have technicians come out. But again, similar deliverable, you'll see emails come through, which will have description, root cause, and then some suggested actions for those technicians. And then one thing I'll add here, maybe it's not so relevant to compressor failure, but when things are able to be solved remotely, that will also be called out. So if we can have Brian save some time, save a technician from rolling, we'll call that out so we can reduce that amount of maintenance spend that you have yearly.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Well, I think I appreciate you going into some detail there, Henry. Hopefully that gives a few good examples of kind of what you could expect anomalies from Axiom. I'd be interested now, Brian, if you wouldn't mind just talking a little bit about kind of what the partnership has been like from your perspective. Would you maybe want to tell us a little bit about what that relationship's been like and what kind of drew you to Axiom in the first place?
Well, for us, the main driver at Grocery Outlet corporate level has been the predictive maintenance side of things. There is some real potential for cost savings there when we can catch things before they become bigger issues. And some of that will be, as simple as like if you've got coffin cases that are starting to trend warm, like they're never getting to set point, but they're not actually warm enough to trigger an alarm yet, then this system can flag that and we can address it before we get warm enough that it's a product issue. And we can also be proactive with it because we can make sure that we do the service call on regular time instead of having it go down on a Saturday when it finally hits high temp. And then also, if you do have a case that's starting to ice up, so it's starting to trend warm, then we're not having to melt a giant Titanic killing iceberg inside your case. We've got a smaller amount of ice to deal with because we were able to catch it before it got big. So that's just kind of one example of kind of the way that predictive maintenance side of it and that AI logic can really help us catch things early and help us save cost. And also by identifying lower level issues that maybe don't need a service call immediately and being able to like have a group of things that we can call a tech out. So instead of being 3 or 4 different service calls with all the travel and all that kind of stuff, we can save up a couple of those and have them come out and deal with all 3 or 4 issues all at once. And so now we're only paying one base fee and we're only paying one amount of travel, and So there's some real opportunities for cost savings in that regard as well. There is, of course, the power side of it that they already talked about, and the demand response. That has a direct impact for you guys because you pay your own power bill. So that for sure is something we looked at when we were looking at Axiom. Because anytime I can find something that has the potential to put money back in your pocket, like I'm all about that. So, and so far, I mean, the partnership's been good. They've worked well with us. They worked well with, especially our IT department in the beginning, trying to get all the kinks worked out to get the connections solid so that their system could do what it needed to do. It's been a good team to work with.
Awesome. Yeah, love that. My follow-up question was, could you give a couple of specific examples? But I guess you just you did give a couple of specific examples of anomalies that have saved some IO's money.
Well, and even here in the last week, as you guys were testing out the stores that were already live to make sure that the demand response function was working properly, we were able to identify I think it was 3 different stores that had issues with compressors where we actually did end up needing to generate service calls. They were compressor groups that were technically maintaining pressure still, but they were right on the edge. So they were going to go down. It was just a matter of time. So we were able to preemptively actually get service calls run out to those locations and get that stuff addressed.
Wow.
Beforehand,
yeah. In just to make it more, extremely concrete, like what would have happened if you didn't have Axiom in that case?
Basically, for those, until another compressor went down, and we had, because at one store, I'm pretty sure it was oil system issues. When I reached out to the service provider, they said, "Oh yeah, we've got a quote we're working on." I was like, "Well, stop working on the quote and just get out there." So in that instance, we would have definitely, eventually the next compressor would have gone off on its oil safety, and we would have had high pressure and, depending on response times and when it happened, like potential for product issues. And then the other one was we were just able to identify a compressor that was down. I don't remember off the top of my head what the issue was at that store. I don't think I've actually gotten notes back on that one yet. But being able to get somebody out there before we lose another compressor, especially if it's an oil issue, typically the compressors will go down one at a time. So being able to get somebody out there earlier before the rack goes down and before your entire medium temp sales floor cases all warm up all at the same time, that's to me where the value in something like this comes in.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for that. That's good context. And one thing I just want to point out is there is a Q&A feature. Jeff, I saw that you submitted your question and Henry has already answered it. So if you have questions as you're going along, feel free to submit them to Q&A. We'll get them answered. And at the very least, we might be able to answer some live in person here towards the end as well. So thank you, Brian. That's really helpful. Anything that anybody would add to that? I guess, Brian, anything that I'm missing there, or are we good to go ahead?
I think one note I would put in, because we kind of already touched at it, and I don't know if you're going to circle back, is on the anomaly reports, their system is going to identify like your top, whatever, 5, 6, like they're going to identify the issues that are like 90% of the time, it's one of these like 3 or 4 things. There are going to be times where your technician is going to come back to you and say, that wasn't it. It was this over here. Because if their system were to list like every single possible permutation of what it could be, then the text would just be wasting a bunch of time. So their system will flag the things that are like 90% of the time. But if a technician comes back to you and says, oh, that wasn't it, it was actually this, like have faith in your technician that they know what they're doing and that they verified that that's what it was. I have had experience as a technician with systems similar to this, where I walked into a store. The guy told me walking in the door that, hey, it's an oil fail, and their computer didn't even have oil fails programmed into it. So somebody gave the guy bad information, but he knew what he knew and just thought I was lying to him to like steal from him or something. I don't know. So know that the system knows what it knows, but it doesn't know what it doesn't know. So there will be times where a technician will come in and say, well, that wasn't quite it. It was actually this over here, but we got it. Like we've still accomplished the purpose. We identified an issue early. We gave him some options to steer him in the right direction. It just wasn't a 90%er this time. So
Yep. There's always going to be those cursory weird ones. But yeah, no, that's good. Okay. Yeah, let me I'm gonna go to kind of the next slide here. So obviously, you know, if I'm you as an IO, I'm gonna be asking myself, okay, but like what's the meat here, right? Like what can I really expect in terms of what I'm getting from Axiom if we decide to sign up? And so here's kind of like what a typical store has looked like so far. So we've been performing in all these stores for 9 months. And you know, basically where we're at is that you know, this is where we've gotten to so far. So the typical store has saved about a little under 5,000 in energy, and in maintenance anomalies, right around 5,000 as well. And then you know, a lot of stores have been able to take advantage of a rate plan switch. So what we'll do is we come in and we consult with you to be able to know, are you on the right rate plan with your utility? And this is actually happened for quite a few stores, where just by switching the rate plan and you know, being able to act on your behalf with the utility, you know, we're able to save 17 grand just right off the top, right, per year, just by switching the rate plan. Now this is the typical. I've seen, I think Brian, you said that there was some that had up to like 25,000 or something like that.
Yeah, there were a couple on the high extreme end that were like 25 and 28 or something like that in that first batch, but those were stores that had been open for a really long time and changed owners a few times, and just nobody had ever actually thought to check and see if there was a better rate plan. So as the rate plans changed over the years, they just were way behind the 8 ball. But that's the really high ones like that were kind of the exception to the rule. Most of them were down in that average range.
Yeah, in this range. And obviously this has to be applicable, right? If you're already on the right rate plan, we can't change that. But there's been a number, like quite a few of these that we've seen that to be able to do that. So I think that's kind of a typical store. You know, I would say, you know, right, so far we've seen stores that save up to about 38,000 in the first 9 months. So you can extrapolate out kind of where that goes over the course of a year. But you know, wanted to give you a little bit of clarity into what you could expect in terms of the dollars and cents. And obviously, you know, completely paid for you know, for the first year. So this is just dollars in the IO's pocket. And then we'll talk about you know, the beauty of this program as well is there is an ongoing incentive, and as a group you get a group discount purchase as well. So quite discounted ongoing costs as well that make this really worth it. Yeah, between a 3 and 4x ROI for every dollar spent, you're gaining quite a bit more. So that's kind of the overall value. Want to go into a little bit detail on what the program really looks like. So here's the program. $0 cost for year one. We're able to do that because we're taking advantage of what they call an ADR incentive with your utilities. So this is for PG&E, SDG&E, and Southern California Edison. Everybody on this call has one of those 3 utilities. And what we're doing is we're getting or you're giving us the ability to work on your behalf and submit this paperwork. We'll do that as a service for you as a part of the group purchase. And this incentive is for automated demand response, right? So having a partner like Axiom who is able to respond to these events. So there's an upfront incentive that covers our year one cost, and then there's an ongoing incentive that will give us discounted ongoing fees as well. So with that, just to kind of recap kind of where we're at here. So energy anomalies for this program, right? Making adjustments to your refrigeration system to make it save energy, changing the utility rate plan, saving up to obviously higher than 17,000, but that's our realistic average. Proactive maintenance, right? Getting ahead of those maintenance issues before they become emergencies, and then grouping that work, as Brian was talking about, to be able to save money. And we call that batching, right? So being able to batch your what we would call anomalies, so that you're only doing one service call instead of a ton of truck rolls for each of them. And lastly, refrigerant leaks, right? Detecting those leaks before product gets warm, leading to spoilage. So that's kind of the overall program and details. Let's jump into some customer stories. So if you wouldn't mind, Sandra, if you want to come off mute, I'll kind of set the scene here, and then I'll maybe ask you a couple of questions. So I'm just going to go ahead and read. So Sandra and Kevin's store, they are pretty high up in the desert, pretty far away from refrigeration vendors. So you'd mentioned that it's difficult to get repairs, and that without really having insight into that problem, it would take quite a bit of time for technicians to fix. Maybe they'd have to come back and do repeat visits. Can you maybe talk a little bit about what it's like to try to get repairs there?
Trying to get anything out here, but it takes quite a bit of time. And when they do come, they have no clue, and they'll have to come, they'll fix it, and then the alarm keeps going off. For months, a good, 3-4 months, our alarm kept going off saying there was a leak. So of course we'd call right away, and they send someone out and they fixed it. As soon as they leave, the alarm keep going off. And the last time that we printed out the anomaly report and handed it to the guy, then he finally figured out that all the sensors were messed up, and there wasn't a leak, thank God. But yeah, it took many months for them to figure it out, and it wasn't until we gave them that report that they were able to figure out it wasn't actually a leak.
Hi guys, I'm Kevin.
Kevin.
One thing that we're finding out from Cool Systems that comes out and works on your system is you're not ever going to get that top technician. They have technicians that are rated from 1 to 3, and a lot of times you get that number 1 technician, which is usually the technician that does your PM work. They're not the ones that actually diagnose the system. So when we had the issue and they came out, which was a trip cost that we had to charge them, they charged us to come out, and we gave him the paperwork. He's like, well, I have no clue what this is. I'm gonna have to get another technician out there. So then another technician has to come out, which you have to be charged another trip cost for them to come out, and the pricing just gets absolutely crazy on it. So when you're doing the service and you call, you're gonna have to ask for a higher end technician. Otherwise, you might get somebody, whoever is available, which is usually a P1 or a P2 that comes out.
Plus also, we can email them the report ahead of time. That way they may send the proper technician versus going through the steps,
That makes perfect sense. Yeah, absolutely. Do you mind sharing how much do you think you guys had to spend for all of those repeat visits before we finally were able to tell them, hey, it's not that issue?
I would say quite a few thousands of dollars.
A few $1,000, yeah. I mean,
In the high desert, if we're their last trip, which sometimes we are because we're in the high desert, they'll make us their last trip. Then they charge us an extra fee, a travel fee for them because it's their last trip.
wow.
So we're just finding out all these things. We're like, geez, okay. So, I mean,
Totally.
it's kind of crazy.
Absolutely. Well, and yeah, hopefully hopefully then if we can start batching some of these, right, so that you only have that one trip fee, we can save, like you said, thousands of dollars. Thank you so much. I know it's a painful conversation.
Since then, we haven't had any issues with the alarm. We were getting emails, phone calls all day, every day for months. And thankfully, it's finally been fixed. And I haven't seen any new anomalies or anything or gotten any alarms. So it's been good since then. They finally fixed it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, good. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for going into a little bit of detail there, Sandra and Kevin. I'm going to go ahead and go to the next one here. So yeah, Jesus, I'll set the scene here for you as well. And if you want to go into a little detail. So you had mentioned that you were kind of, I mean, there's a few different things I think we could chat about here, but you're finding out about issues when cases would get warm, and that then everything needed to be dropped for those emergencies. You want to maybe kind of talk about what it's been like after getting Axiom then?
You know, the main thing that I really love about Axiom is the fact that I'm not having to do any monitoring myself. You know, I don't have to like log into a system in order to see what's going on. I just let Axiom kind of do its thing. And when they send me these anomalies, for example, low urgency anomalies, for example, I got one last week that said that my deli case wasn't meeting the set point. And so I put this, what I did was I printed it out, I put it up on my clipboard right in front of my desk. And then yesterday, my front meat spot box was running warm. And so I had to have somebody come out to fix it. When he came out to fix it, I handed him this low urgency anomaly report. And he was able to find that there was a slight blockage in our deli case that was causing it to work harder than it really needed to.
Wow.
So, you know, that's sort of what I really love about the system is that, you know, we're able to catch things that maybe we wouldn't normally catch. And that way it's been really, it's been awesome. It's been great for us. So
that's amazing. Yeah. So you're talking about the ability to kind of what we would consider batch work orders or batch anomalies, right? So
right.
Yeah. So you've avoided additional trip, right? When, you know, eventually, because I would assume what's going to happen then if it's blocked, right? I would assume it's going to start icing up. Is that what they told you?
Yes.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay. Got it. Yeah. So eventually it'd probably start icing up. That'll probably have somebody come out there for another trip. I don't know. Maybe a technician comes out there and you just pay them to, you know, get the ice off of it. Right. It's okay. Gotcha. Yeah. That's amazing. Okay, good. How much would that save? I mean, what are you paying on a trip cost?
Gosh, I mean, it's hard for me to put a number on that. But I mean, I would
$100.
Oh yeah, and I would imagine it's at, you know, right under $1,000 or so, like, you know.
Wow.
So I mean, when this report was sent to me, it told me that if I didn't address this issue, that it was going to cost me an extra $1,197.
Yep.
And then, so
yeah,
I mean, that.
Yeah. And one last thing here. I know that you had mentioned when we were chatting last week that one of the things you really liked was the energy anomalies. You want to talk a little bit about what you've received there?
The energy anomalies. So one thing that it has told me is like well, I believe that's what this report was it was telling me that it was using more energy than it should.
Got it. Yep.
So that's sort of that. Like I said, that's the thing I love about the system is that, you know, I don't have to check on anything. It's going to tell me when things, you know, when it's using too much energy. So we can get down to the bottom of it and figure out what it is.
That's awesome. Yeah, it sounds like saving over over $1,000 on energy in the first 3 months of the year, which is right on par with what we're hoping for. So that's amazing. Well, thank you, Jesus. Anything you would add to that, or am I good to go on to Sarah?
No, I think we're good.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. Yeah, Sarah, if you don't mind coming off of mute as well, it looks like you already are. So interestingly enough, it sounds like a similar concern to what Sandra was saying. So
I can relate to every word of it. They suspect, they don't really know. Everyone's in a guessing mode. Nobody knows. And just having a little bit more insight into what's going on. And I know a few months ago, we got one that we got an anomaly report that we had a refrigerant leak. So, that was kind of cool, because before you wouldn't know that until they either did a PM and found it or whatever. And by then, it was this big deal. So it was really nice to just call in. I think it was a few things on that one report, and we called it all in at once, got it all done. And it felt very proactive, which was cool, because a lot of times with this refrigeration stuff, I mean, we're a really old store. We've had lots of refrigeration things, and it's nice to number one, have that like little extra set of eyes on things. And number two, just feeling like you're being a little bit proactive with some of this stuff, instead of waiting for your whole cases to go down. And then all of a sudden you're out of business and you've got all this labor trying to pull cases and deal with that. So anything that can be a little bit more proactive, I think, is well worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, I totally agree. Thank you so much for going into some detail there. Yeah, I would assume, right? Because you had talked about, I love the quote that you gave, which is like, I can't tell you how many times, a technician comes in and then gripes about the last technician that was there.
So many times. Oh, well, they did this. And, we had one recently that they used too small of a wire to wire something. And it's like, well, so he's telling me that. So it's just there's a lot of variations with techs, and anything that can give them like just a hard example of this is what's going on, I think is really good. Because a lot of times, like they said, it's a tier 1 tech or tier 2 tech, and they don't know. They just honestly don't know. And so anything to give them that little extra help is good.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. I know you've been so generous with your time. I just wanted to hit on one thing that I thought was really fascinating. So you had talked about having this recurring issue with your refrigeration system that it seemed like no technician could solve. And then you'd said that for the first time we sent our anomaly to you and they were actually able to finally solve it.
Right. We actually have another one right now though. So we'll see how that goes. I'm going to print out. So I have a question actually. Can I print out a report even if there's no anomaly and give that to them to see if, because I think right now we have a set point issue with our AC system. And I'm curious if I just, even without an anomaly, can just print out the report to see if that will help them. Because right now we have the same kind of situation. The techs can't fix it. They don't know what the problem is, but I don't know if that is something that it can do.
Yeah. Well, you can log into your customer web portal. Henry, you want to go into a little detail there? If you can unmute.
Yeah. We can either log into your customer web portal and take a look at, you said this was a HVAC set point?
It's something about it keeps alarming for AC, and so far they haven't been able to fix it. So I'm kind of thinking, well, what can we do to help them figure out what the problem is?
Yeah, definitely. Let me get with the product team and get something sent over on that.
Okay.
We'll make sure that gets addressed.
That would be awesome. Thank you. But yeah, anything that helps with anything like that is a win for us for sure.
Just a heads up for you, I was just giving them a hand as I was getting on the plane yesterday to come home from Cali. There are some programming things that we're going to work through today. It was causing the compressors to end up tripping and shutting down. So even though it was trying to cool, it couldn't. So we're working through that today.
Thank you.
Got it. Yeah, it's amazing. Well, good. All right. Well, Yeah, Sarah, thank you so much for going into a little bit of detail there. Hopefully then, we can catch some of those issues, because I would assume that you probably ended up spending, thousands of dollars as well on that issue that nobody could fix. So that's a good example of Brian's 90% of the time we can, hopefully show something that the technicians don't see yet. Well, we're coming to the end here. I have one last slide, which is, how to sign up here. So if this is something of interest to you and you want to take advantage of it, what the process is going to be is over the next however many weeks, I'll be able to, you can reach out to me. I'm going to reach out to all of you on the call, and we'll put together a 2-page quote for your specific address. And it'll be based on your specific size of your store. And then we'll put together an incentive application as well. Basically, the only thing you need to do to move forward is sign our 2-page quote and incentive application that we'll put into a DocuSign, those two together. And then the other thing that needs to happen in order for us to do the incentives and rebates for you is we need to get a scissor form signed, which is a customer information service request form. And the reason for that form is it allows us to act on your behalf with the utility. It also helps us, or it gives us the ability to know, if we can change your utility rate and save you money that way. And it obviously helps, gives us the ability to manage your incentive applications for you as well. So, Amrit, is there anything that I'm missing there in terms of what's needed for them to move forward?
Nope. We're going to keep this really simple and streamlined. And we're going to be available to answer any questions along the way. And yeah, we want to hopefully not add too much work to Brian's plate here, but Brian will be included on most of these communications as well to make sure that, he can catch any issues that in case we're missing anything.
Yeah, totally. And then one last thing here is just in terms of timeline, we're doing this as a group purchase. Just full transparency, the economics of trying to do all the incentive applications. Like I'm sure you can imagine what it's like to do incentive applications with the government and a utility. So in order to make it economical, we're going to try to do all of them at once. So if you want to move forward, we just need to have these things signed by June 21st, which is, you should have over a month to be able to see everything about Axiom, get your quote, and everything like that. So if you have any questions, I don't see any in the Q&A right now. But if you do have questions, you should have my email in that email thread that Brian sent out. It's right at the bottom. And then my phone number is also there. That's my cell phone. You can reach me all throughout the day. I always have it on me. So I think with that, we're probably good to call it for today. Sarah, Sandra, Jesus, Brian, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you giving some detail into what it's been like to work with Axiom.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Talk to you all very soon.